true though. It's been scientifically proven that women's brains, as they operate, have all these different neural pathways moving across that exchange all this different information. But blokes do one thing at a time really, really well. So there you go. Now I've got you tuned into me. What I was talking to the fellows at Wilson's about was the lineup of speakers that we have in this next segment. And there's a lot of people talking about rare earths. And so Sam's quote to me was, lots of rare earth in this break, not an area not well understood by the market in general, and therein lies your opportunity. So that's Sam's tip for you for this break. Also, we're talking about the fact that what you need rare earths for, obviously, is for things like magnets. We need magnets for our electric vehicles. And I was talking to one of our people over in Singapore at our conferences earlier this year, and they were saying you've actually got beautiful luxury cars at the moment being made, and you expect to have the little, you know, the little button on the side, and your seat goes forward and your seat goes back thanks to the magnets, etc. They don't have enough rare earths, some of the companies, or access to them, to make that particular function. So you've got the lever forward and back because they are becoming that little bit more rare. So there you go. Here's just a bit of information you may or may not have needed to know, but we are into session number 2 for day 1. And the fellow who's waiting up here very patiently is known as Chris Gibbs. So Chris is the Managing Director and CEO of, coincidentally, American Rare Earths. So it's a good segue. He's got over 28 years of experience in this sector globally. He's an innovative leader. He's got a proven track record for implementing organisational change and delivering business results, which is good because he's got some very big manoeuvres he needs to make sure happen very, very smoothly this year. We'll hear more about those. He's also sharing the latest updates on the Altech Creek project. And as I said, the company's relocation to the US. Would you please make him welcome?
How's everyone doing after the little break? Hope you've enjoyed, and I'd like to thank, thanks, particularly the Melbourne folks for bringing the great weather down here to the Gold Coast for us. But no, look, I'm super excited to be sharing the story about American Rare Earths. American Rare Earths is in the right place at the right time and with the right commodity. Look, we're the only successful Australian explorer with a world-class rare earth deposit in the United States, a JORC resource of 1.43 billion tonnes with over 4 million tonnes of TRIO, that's your total rare earth oxides, and more than 1 million tonnes of NdPr, which is these highly valuable magnetic rare earths. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about us today, and again, it's about being in the right place at the right time. But we'll have to give our disclaimers first, and just obviously everyone to take note. But again, being in the right place at the right time, there's a compelling investment story. As I said, we've got this huge resource called Altech Creek, and this deposit could not be more significantly larger. It's a strategic asset within the United States. This deposit could be significantly larger than the only other rare earth mine currently in the United States, which is run by MP Materials, and we're only about 2% of their market cap, and I'll talk about that. It's no secret, the USA, it's the largest economy in the world, and they are desperately seeking to onshore these critical materials, and it's a priority for them to, priority will be given to domestic suppliers. And that's where we're based, American Rare Earths. I know you're talking to an Aussie, but I've spent a lot of time in North America running mines. I've run metal refineries, I've worked for metals companies, I've been across the whole spectrum. And I'm super excited to share this story. Like I said, a global significant deposit. It's got significant upside potential. And this upside potential is we've only drilled 25% of this actual deposit. And what's exciting, this deposit also continues at depth. So it remains open at depth and at width. And we've got potential for higher grade zones within this deposit. But we're also, the other potential for the company is we're also looking at some other great opportunities right up through this belt within Wyoming, up through to Idaho, etc. There's, I believe there's still some other major rare earth finds that you'll hear more from us on in the future. So Altech Creek, great deposit. The ore is at surface, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but its mineralization goes down to over 500 feet. And yeah, it's bodes itself well to conventional mining. And this is a large open pit. And these large open pits in the western part of the United States are not unheard of. Yeah, I've run one of these large open pit mines in British Columbia, and the grades of this mine I was running had a cutoff grade of 0.043%. This deposit here, we've got rare earths here at 0.4%. But the amount of rare earths, and if I did, you can do the math on 1 million tons of NdPr, what that in situ value is in the ground. And I'm not talking millions of dollars, I'm talking billions of dollars of value here at this project. So in mining, we're in the, I call it, I'm in the land game. And so when it comes to land, it's about location, 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 location. And for American Rare Earths, our properties are located within the United States. Mining-friendly jurisdictions, again, the largest economy. You'll hear some more today about the rare earth market, the compelling market. But simply put, the future requires these rare earths. Everything we're doing today. We don't have enough of them, so I can move that seat in my car, okay? As the lady said before. But no, look, there's a lot of focus right now on lithium because of the batteries required. But the batteries need to power something. And every time you have motion, they need to power something. That power is actually being driven by magnets, and that's what creates the motion. And these magnets is what we're focused on. The other real piece here is that we've got this geopolitical forces that are in our favor, and that's why it could not be better timing for American Rare Earths. There's a number of presidential orders, and I even heard, whoever's heard last night, I think, or yesterday, the Australian government mentioned they're throwing $500 million into rare earths. The US government are throwing billions of dollars into this problem because they can see there's a shortage. There is not enough rare earths in the future. So we're well poised. Again, we've got this large deposit. Environmentally, I'll talk about that, but this deposit, clean and green in that it's low in thorium. So you'll hear so often these rare earth deposits about grade, and you hear about that there's high penalty elements. The problem with high thorium uranium is you need to get rid of it, you need to dispose of it. And it's costly, and it'll also add to your process. This ore we have is very, very low in thorium uranium. In fact, that low that we're the only rare earths explorer in the United States who is actually working with groups like DARPA and some other EMBA programs and researchers who are actually working on clean and green technology to transform the rare earth industry. And so there's some of these R&D programs that we're involved in, and we're the sole industry rep. And you might have heard some projects, some technology around bacteria, using bugs and bacteria to refine and process rare earths. Well, that's us. We're involved in that. Not us personally, in that we're providing the ore, but these research bodies, we're partnering with Lawrence Livermore Institute, Penn State, and the list goes on. They're using our ore, and we are the sole industry rep. Anyway, exciting stuff, but this slide says it all about who we are and the reason why to invest. My vision here is to create the next major rare earth company within the United States. And to do that, we're focused on really 4 things. And this is advancing this massive Halleck Creek project, this strategic asset in the heart of the United States. It's in Wyoming, great mining jurisdiction. That's our number 1 focus. Number 2, we're collaborating with these R&D groups to come up with that new clean and green technologies. I'm super excited about what that could hold. I like to be in the race. And I liken it to being a horse race, and we've got a jockey on a number of different horses. If one of those horses come off, we're into it. That's transformational. If it doesn't, we're still using conventional technology, and everything we're focused on is conventional technology. As we move the project through the feasibility phases. But if one of those new technologies pans out, wow, could be huge. The other piece, as I mentioned before, we are exploring further up the curve, looking for other rare earth projects. I'm in the land game, so I want to have the largest rare earth footprint in the United States, because the fundamentals for this industry are huge. And rare earths are required, and I believe the United States is untapped in terms of some of these deposits. And so we're going after those. And talking about the United States, people have asked me, I was here today, and a lady asked me, she says, Chris, why aren't you, American rare earths, why aren't you in the United States? Well, we are, in that I've got a team on the ground in the United States, and we're setting up our presence in our offices in the United States. And we've announced this. We've got US directors. We currently have a listing on the US OTC markets, but it's on the QB markets. Right now, we're working with BNY Mellon Bank to get what's called American Depository Receipts. And within the next month, we'll be uplisted onto the OTC QX, which is the premium market for the OTC markets. We're also working on application to the NASDAQ, and we announced that. And we meet all the requirements and the criteria for a dual listed company to list on the NASDAQ. And that path is well trod with companies like Piedmont Lithium, who started out with a market cap of 30 million. Today, they're a $1.5 billion company. And so this is great news for the Australian investors, because we want to tap into the US market and to the investors who want to hop on board and be part of this success story. Because again, this largest rare earth deposit within the United States, love it big. Okay, this is that scale size. And what we're doing on the R&D front is huge. So we want to tap into those US investors, and I think that's going to be transformational for our company. Again, for us, we're going to be along the whole spectrum here of the supply chain from, we're an exploration company that's our forefront. That's who we are today. To get to here to be producing metal products, I've worked along that spectrum, from everything from exploring to helping build new mines, through to commissioning new mines, to running mines, running metal refineries in Pittsburgh. I've run a titanium dioxide plant in Baltimore, Maryland. I've been across that spectrum, and that's our vision. And with us being in the US, we can tap into folks, partners who can actually support us to be part of that, okay? Because I recognise we're not going to do that alone. Key sites, 3 major projects right now. The one I'm really super excited about is the Halleck Creek project. And that project, I'm very pumped about. And I've talked a little bit about that, and I'll talk some more. But we've also got the La Paz project and a project in Searchlight. And pretty soon I'm hoping to put up there another project there. So Halleck Creek project in Wyoming, I'll go through here. I've talked really about this JORC resource. It's huge. And we're going to be doing more drilling very shortly to actually convert more of the inferred over to indicated. And again, we're also going to be plugging some holes in because we've only drilled 25% of this area. We're going to be putting some additional holes in. Apart from the resource drilling, we want to test out into some of these other areas. Also want to see how deep this thing goes, okay? Because right now we're down to 170 odd meters. And this gives you an idea. That's in kilometers. This thing goes about 6 kilometers in length, okay? But it's open at depth and also open at width. Those red markers you see there are essentially the mineralization from surface all the way down to depth. And that's why I want to put a hole in. I've got 3 minutes. it went from 14 minutes to 3 really quick. I'm thinking of sitting on 14 for a while. That's great. These are some of the geologists. Yeah, love this stuff. But no, we've got great mineralogy, great metallurgical results. We've been announcing some of these metallurgical results. Conceptual flow sheet, we're working with the folks at Wood. And now look, we're very pumped with what we're seeing here. The ore has a low strength. Bond Paul Mill index is low, but the testing has shown that over 70% of the rare earths is removed at the early stages. But it's all proving out well, and we've got more test work that's underway and being completed, and we'll continue to update the market. Looking at the peers, just with other undeveloped rare earth projects, this is us today, okay? But the key point I want to make is we're in America, okay? The US, the largest economy in the world, wants the rare earths in country, in that location, and that's where we're setting up, American Rare Earths. Again, collaborating with these various folks, and this could be truly transformational. Not just for American Rare Earths, but I think for us all in general, because there needs to be some breakthroughs that when we produce rare earths, it needs to be clean and green, because producing rare earths does create some pollutions. And so it's not good to be actually doing that in such a way that creates a problem for others. So I'm super excited with this. Lots of upcoming activity, and I've been told now I'm down to my last 2 minutes. I was ready to wrap. Okay, lots of upcoming activity happening here at American Rare Earths. Metallurgical testing, we'll have some more results coming out on that very shortly. We're doing our initial desktop study internally, and I'm pretty stoked about what I'm seeing here today. And like I said, I've run some of these mines, and I'm very excited with to be able to come out to the market with some of these economics, and that's what we'll be focused on next. Now, exploration program starts out very soon. We've got permits in just in progress for this further drilling, so I can get out there and try to find some of the additional higher grade and add to some of those resources and to find out what's at depth. And we're testing some of those new holes. So again, for American Rare Earths, just had the opportunity to share a little bit of our story. I'm out at the booth, come and talk to me, and I'd love to share some more, but right place, right time, and with the right commodity. Thank you.
Stand up there, I get a picture of you. You can do it, mate. Hold on a second. Wait. I was more thinking of them. Stand with them. You stand with them for 2 seconds. So my apologies for trying to do your presentation an injury then. Did you enjoy that anyway, everyone? Yeah? What I found really interesting, and Keith down the back has brought his partner with him this year, first time, and he was saying that usually we have a little bit more of a different investment opportunities. This year we're really focused on resources, and we're looking for a bit of biotech, etc. There you go, Keith. We've got a little bit of it just squeezing in there then. I did not expect to hear about bacteria being used in the electrification of the world. So you taught us something, and best of luck. It's a really big year. Interesting to see if any of you are interested in that one. So Sam earlier on today was talking about the importance of experience in the teams leading projects when you're looking at your investment opportunities. And our next speaker certainly fits that bill. He's a chartered mechanical engineer with lots of senior experience through all aspects of projects across some pretty challenging jurisdictions and also financial markets. Tom Davidson is his name as he makes his way up onto the stage. He also has the skill and experience in rare earth element process design. So when good old ACDC Metals knocked on his door, he said, now there's an opportunity for me and I am moving with these people. So the story focuses on rare earths and heavy mineral sands. It swayed him. Will it sway all of you to invest? Would you please make him welcome? Have I just moved through, have I? Yeah. Green lithium. No, I'm sorry, that's not what's on mine. We'll have to... Do you want to I've got Tom.
Yeah.
I've got Tom up and I've got the wrong slide. Oh, sorry, excuse me. That's what you're saying. I'm sure that's Tom there. Someone's moved Tom
Yep,
for
there
me.
we go.
Right, does that look like something you'd like?
Yep, that's the one.
All right, let's start that again. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands together for an investment opportunity that may rock your world, ACDC Metals.
Thank you. We got there. Yeah, hi all, and thank you for the opportunity. Very pleased to be here and share with you today the ACDC story and why we are worth a close look with the opportunity for a re-rate. I hope you can all agree that the name is a very memorable one, and I hope you find the story as well. The disclaimer, the essential disclaimer. I guess I'm an engineer, not a geologist, so there will be no outlandish statements in this one. The strategy. So the ACDC strategy essentially is completely connected to the energy transition, supplying materials for the efficient low carbon capture and storage of energy. We aren't the first ones trying to achieve this, of course, but there's a massive opportunity out there for Australia. Our aim is to be a supplier of the separated rare earth elements within Australia, utilising innovative technology and using the mineral monazite as a byproduct from our mineral sand mine. The time for Australia selling low value materials offshore is gone, and we're really excited to be playing a part in this. So why ACDC? So as I mentioned, we have that exposure to the energy transition, and then there's the demand for the critical minerals. Government are demanding it, the public are demanding it, and to bring it onshore and to do that full value add steps all the way through from mine to magnet. And we know that the markets are growing. You know, there's plenty of information out there on the growth to 2030, the doubling of requirements for these rare earths, the number of projects that need to come online. And so that's the great space to be in. Since listing in January of 23, so we're only a new company, 6 months old. We recently went through our IPO over Christmas, raised 8 million. And since then, we've been on the ground hitting our milestones. So we've just completed a 13,000 or 12,500 metre program across our projects. Assays have just started coming back in. We released some, I think 2 weeks ago, our first lot at Goshen Central. Again, last week, we finally got some mineralogy coming through. And there've been exceptional numbers that we've seen so far. And so internally, we're very excited about what we're seeing. And I guess that's now that we've completed that 3 months worth of drilling, there should be about another 3 months worth of data that'll come in through from the labs. And yeah, we look forward to be able to share that with our shareholders. As I mentioned, also the JORC resource. So all the drilling that we're going right now is all working towards that maiden JORC resource. And so we're on target for that for the next quarter. With all the results coming in now, we've already engaged our geology consultant, and they're working through all that right now. And I guess also the other ACDC component is our differentiator, which is the rare earth processing component. So we're not only going to mine the mineral sands and the monazite, and then we'll take that monazite to another plant, which will then be the rare earth carbonate. And that's the first step towards that magnet production. And that's really our key differentiator. So the board of management team. So we've assembled a strong team of experience in geology, corporate development, finance, engineering. And I think today we have here Mark and Ivan also here today. So come and hit us up at booth number 20, I think, for if you want to have another chat. Capital structure. So it's tightly held, well funded. We're sitting at around a cash backing at the moment, so it makes my job easy to demonstrate why the price is going to go up. As I mentioned before, we have a strong cash position. And if you take note of the graph at the bottom there, when we're comparing to our peers, the market cap. So that's the upside. Obviously, the two sort of bigger ones there, VHM and Astron, they're in the same region as us, same style of projects. They're just further along that development pathline. And so that's where we're going. And so that's the real upside for us. And so really, this is the key slide, which really, in a nutshell, what is ACDC all about? So the first box there that represents the heavy mineral sand operation. So at the moment, we have tenements or projects in Western Victoria, the Murray Basin, which is the historic inland sea, and so where a lot of these minerals are being deposited. And so this represents, we would have a mineral sand plant located there. and that would produce 3 concentrates. So we would produce a heavy mineral concentrate, which is being mined extensively in that region and also in Australia and across the world. And so there's well-established markets there, and that's the zircons, rutyls, titanias, which are used extensively now, and markets show good forecasts for them as well. The major sort of difference now from where historically these tenements were looked at is the monazite component. So the monazite contains the rare earths. And so you can see that little arrow there coming off. That's the main concentrate that would either be, you can export that back over to other markets where they would do that separation. But the main sort of story for ACDC is then to put it into our other plant. And so we have an exclusive agreement with Lanthanein Resources, a Canadian listed company, who have been working on the rare earth process for the last 5 or 6 years. And we have the exclusive license agreement to use that in Australia. And so the plan is we would produce the monazite concentrate, which would then be transported across to that plant, or we could also import from third parties. And so that's the value add, the downstream processing, all the good things that everyone wants to hear and do, and that's all onshore in Australia. And obviously with that, the rare earth cracking dissolution process, the next step is in the separation, which separates out the individual oxides. And then the next step is, they're not working, the magnets. And so when we've been talking to where we want to locate this plant, whether it's in Victoria or South Australia, when we've met with the various departments, they're all very excited about that medallion monazite process and what that also can bring to the table. So if we go along and set up that shop, then the other ones will come, and then you start creating a hub. And that's the sexy part, is getting to the end and producing those magnets. And that's what everyone's excited about. I guess we're going to hear this a lot over the next 2 days, the rare earth opportunity. Yes, so there's strong growth. We know it's going to, forecasting to show it's going to double by 2030. The other key one here is to sort of show that at the moment where a lot of this processing occurs. So a lot of the rare earth mining, 60% of it occurs in China. And those following steps, that downstream value add, over 90% of that is currently conducted in China. And so that's the real opportunity, is to then, and Europe and US and everyone's all looking at it, trying to bring this back home to onshore. And I guess the sort of second key point is really the rare earth magnet value, over 85% of it is post-mining activities. So that's the real opportunity. That's why the governments and everyone are excited about this, with the royalties and the ongoing, how that will filter down across the areas. So the ACDC opportunity. So talking a bit more about the actual monazite process. So as I mentioned, we have the exclusive agreement with Medallion, and so that allows us to use that technology in South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, and Northern Territory. And so this process hasn't just been cooked up in the last few months. Medallion have been working on this in the last 5 or 6 years. They've been working on this with the equivalent of ANSTO in Canada, so the Saskatchewan Research Council. So the flow sheet is technically robust. They've done scoping studies when it was previously been looked at for the US. And so we've just engaged consultants, and we're now looking at localizing this into Australia and to update that process. And so essentially what the monazite process is, it's previous technology that was used in the 70s in La Rochelle, France, and then subsequently went to China. And the main difference is now is they've made a more efficient process. So they've gone from a batch operation to a continuous operation. So you get efficiencies in energy, reagent consumption, and also the waste streams are minimized. So yes, you still have waste, but it's more minimized and easier to handle. And also the key one as well, which also sort of helps identify that we don't need to develop both of these projects to make the company successful. They can run independently. So as I mentioned, that the monazite process, the rare earth separation piece, we can import monazite from other mineral sand miners. or we can feedstock our own. And so these two projects can run their own path. It'd be great if they ran together and we were doing all our own, but it also provides a bit of a backstop. So our mineral sands projects. So as I mentioned, we're in the Murray Basin, so that's Western Victoria. So the inland sea, which was I think 50, 60 million years ago. That's where all the minerals were then all separated out. And so we're in a highly productive area of exploration and past mining activities. So you might, I guess, recognise Iluka. So Iluka's mined there in the past. I think operations have, I think 2 or 3 that have previously been operated and closed. There's other peers that are not far from our projects, are well advanced with permitting approvals through to the FID times. So, and I guess our projects are sort of right amongst that sweet spot. And so what we've just done in the last 6 months is we've gone along and done discovery drilling across all 3 of these projects. So it's totaled about 12,500 metres. And where we saw some good stuff visually in the pans, the geos got all excited and we did a bit closer infill drilling. And then we went in paddock and did further drilling. And that's the results that we released a couple of weeks ago of that roadside drilling, which was really encouraging, and we saw great numbers. And so Goshen Central is the key project. I'm not sure. Yes, those dots, the blue and orange dots is what we released 2 weeks ago, and we saw really high assemblage of THM. So that's the total heavy minerals, and what the real kicker is coming is the white infill holes. So they're at the lab right now, being processed, and we're hoping to get them within the next month or so. And all the holes all around that component have all come back showing very promising numbers. The one yellow dot there in the middle was the mineral assemblage. And so again, it was only on one hole, but we saw great numbers. And so really for these projects, the real ones that you want to look at is the zircon and the monazite. And so we reported a zircon number of around 35%, which is about 50% higher than what we typically see in the Murray Basin region. And similarly with the monazite, came back at 9%, which is about double what we were expecting. So yeah, I do remember picking up the phone and calling our geo and just confirming that I was reading the numbers correctly when I was reading before I start telling everyone. And also you can see with the mineralization there in that graph, it's pretty shallow. Even though that might be low grade initially at the top there, you're still being paid on the way down to the higher grade stuff where you want to be. And so the plan over this next month or 2 is more mineralogy, more QEM scan results will come in, and that'll help fill out our confidence in the project there. Just to sort of quickly cover these other 2 projects, Watcham. So you can see all the little black dots there. So this was CRA back in the 80s and 90s, did a lot of drilling across these areas. And so previously they were looking for monazite. It was just the heavy mineral sands. And so we've gone back in there. We've replicated some of their holes so that we can sort of validate the data. And then also where we've seen some good stuff, we've gone back and done further drilling as well. So we did about 75 holes. And that again, all that material was off at the lab being processed right now. Similarly with Douglas, another good program down there. So on the rare earth processing, so I mentioned before the exclusive agreement. The other exciting part that we have is when we did the drilling at Goshen, we also collected further material to support the test work development. So not only for collecting for resource development and producing our JORC resource, we got about 2.5–3 tons worth of material that we can then send off to the lab to start doing the process validation of the rare earth separation piece. And so that'll sort of, we're looking to kickstart that off towards the end of the year. And yeah, that'll be exciting to be able to get that through the lab and start working towards that. Yep. Work plan, as I just mentioned, we're going through those studies now for both of them. And I guess just to summarize, the corporate team is strong cash balance. We're executing on time and to our plan, and the business model is strong. All right, thank you for your support.
Thanks, Tom. Cheers, buddy. He had 21 slides and I'm looking at him, you've only gone through 12 and
Yeah.
you had 2 minutes going, this is not going to end well for either of us.
Yeah.
But the beauty is they're here. They can
Yes.
come out and they can see you. For those of you who are playing along at home, and I'll move myself across here just so that those of you who are actually watching at home can actually see that it's not a disembodied voice, it's a real human being here. So thanks for joining in. Our next presenter up on stage is someone that all of you will know pretty well, I reckon. He's got a fantastic history in the lithium industry. He is here today in his capacity representing Altech Chemicals, Iggy Tan, grabbing his little button from beside me. There's not really a lot I can say about him, but I tell you, new technology again, Keith. We're looking at salt batteries, so that's a really interesting development. Would you please put your hands together for Iggy Tan and Altech?
Now, you probably woke up last night at 2 a.m. and you probably pondered this question: what is the future of grid storage batteries? Well, I'm going to talk about, firstly, solid state batteries. Who understands what solid state is? The lithium industry is trying to move to solid state technology. And I'll give you a bit of an explanation. So in a lithium battery, you've got the cathode and you've got an anode. And the liquid in between is a flammable liquid, a liquid electrolyte, and that causes battery fires. So the industry is trying to move to solid state technology where they remove the liquid electrolyte and replace it with a ceramic piece. And the ceramic allows the lithium to go back and forth without any liquids. Okay, so that's solid state. Some of the challenge of lithium-ion batteries, you see on the news, lithium-ion batteries on fire, you virtually have to let it burn out. You can't put that fire out because it generates oxygen at the cathode end of the battery. People also don't realize that lithium-ion battery only operates in a very limited temperature range. So 15 degrees to about 35 degrees. When you get to very cold climates, the battery actually slows down because the liquid electrolyte becomes viscous and the lithium reaction slows down. The life of the battery, generally about 8 to 10 years, and that's because lithium degrades every time you charge and discharge a battery. Now, this is the concern for the lithium battery industry. Lithium prices have gone up 5 to 6-fold in the last 2 years. Well, obviously, if you had lithium stocks, you're not worried about that, but it's a concern for the industry. Cobalt, this ethical supply of cobalt, 70% of cobalt comes from the DRC, and there are ethical issues with child labor and so on. Graphite, 90% of graphite comes from China. And so that represents a geopolitical risk. One country supplying all that material to the lithium-ion battery industry. There's a copper crunch coming. So there's enough studies that show there's not enough copper mines coming on stream to meet the EV demand. And then finally, manganese, another component of lithium batteries. So my question to you, is there a battery that is totally fireproof, has a large temperature range, more than 15 years life, with no lithium, no cobalt, no graphite, no copper or manganese? Well, introducing you to the Serenity battery, essentially made of table salt and nickel metal powder. This is what the cells look like. They're about 250 watts. One of those equivalent to a solar panel on your roof. Okay, so essentially the technology was developed by the German Fraunhofer Battery Institute. They spent nearly 35 million euros and 8 years in development for the grid storage market. So the batteries are totally fireproof. We have solid state technology. We don't have the liquid electrolyte. It's a ceramic piece. So totally fireproof. The temperature range can operate down to minus 40 degrees and up to 60 degrees. And the reason it can do that is because the battery runs at 270 degrees on the inside. It's fully insulated. You can touch the batteries on the outside. And the analogy is a bit like a mammal. When you charge the battery, it takes heat away. When you discharge it, it creates heat. So that mechanism allows the battery to operate down to minus 40 degrees. So very large temperature range. We don't have a liquid electrolyte, it's solid state technology. So the sodium doesn't degrade every time you charge and discharge the battery. We use common salt. Sodium is actually very reactive. It sits under lithium on the periodic table. It's readily available, it's cheap. So we don't have any lithium. We don't have any cobalt in the chemistry. So we don't need cobalt for the chemistry to work. And the most interesting thing is there is no anode in the battery. It self-forms the anode and it discharges the anode when you, so we don't need graphite and we don't need copper. So no copper, no graphite. So how does the battery work? So channel your chemistry when you're doing chemistry at high school. It's a ceramic piece. In the ceramic, there's a positive probe and we fill that ceramic with salt and nickel metal powder. That's it. The ceramic piece, as you can see the picture there, sits in a metal cylinder, which acts as the negative part of the battery. So the probe is the positive, the cylinder is the negative part of the battery. So what happens when you charge this battery? So this is a picture of what that ceramic looks like in the cylinder. And this metal cylinder is 250 watts. So when you charge the battery, the sodium ions migrate across the ceramic piece and forms molten sodium on the other side. And the reason nickel is there is because nickel grabs onto the chloride and allows the sodium to migrate, all right? So nickel's there to grab the chloride. And if you take a cross section, this is what it looks like, the molten sodium forming. The beauty of this chemistry, it forms the anode when you charge it, and it dissolves the anode when you discharge it. There is no actual anode of the battery. Now, when you discharge it, you can see the sodium ions migrate back through the solid state, grabs the chloride, and becomes salt again. So essentially, that's the battery. Well, how does it compare to other batteries? Well, as you can see here, we have very similar energy density to LFP batteries. We are very similar in energy conversion, but double the life of the battery. I also mentioned the safety, but the most important thing on this slide is the maintenance costs. It's virtually zero. In a Tesla Megapack, there are 240 cooling fans trying to keep that battery cool and 2 big air conditioners. So 20% of your EV battery is used to cool the battery down. We don't have that problem. So where do we sit on the curve, right? This on the bottom axis is the energy a battery gives. The top axis is the amount of power it gives. So if you look at the red curve, the top of the red curve is where all the high power batteries, the nickel cobalt batteries, and the bottom part are more LFP batteries. A lot of the EVs are now moving to LFP. We sit right in the middle. We can deliver the energy as well as the power. All right, our market is the grid storage market. Essentially, we've got solar panels being generating electricity, wind farms. And if you see the bottom of that curve, there are two peaks. 6 a.m., everybody gets up. 6 p.m., everybody goes home, and all the energy demand goes up. But where do we generate power? It's during the day. So 6 p.m. is when the sun sets and the energy goes up. And this is the problem. It's now called the duck curve, okay? And do you know that Germany wastes 2 billion every year by discharging renewable energy into the ground? California wastes 3 billion every year renewable energy in the ground. In Australia, 20% of the renewable energy is actually discharged to the ground. And that's because we can't use it. What happens when EV comes along? An EV will draw that much power, equivalent to 150 houses in a short period of time. Do you think the grid can handle that? This is where grid storage comes to play. A grid storage is a very big battery that sits on the grid. You charge it during the day when the sun's up and you discharge it at night. You need these storage for EV charging. So that's the future of where we're heading to. The demand is growing at 28%. As Elon Musk said, the grid storage sector is going to be the biggest sector than the EV market. Now we're ready to commercialize this. We're not a research and development project. All the work's been done by the German Institute. These are some of the vision of the pilot plant that's been built. $25 million of pilot plant has been built to produce these batteries. So you can see here, that's a 5 kilowatt battery undergoing tests. They've already been produced. They've been running for 2 to 3 years. And we have a joint venture with Fraunhofer to develop this technology and commercialize it. So this is some of how the ceramics are being made. Here's the alumina powder been mixed, and you can see the ceramics being made. It has to be sintered, but the technology is that solid state. It allows the sodium ions to go back and forth through solid, no liquid, and that's the technology. This is a 10 kilowatt battery undergoing tests. And you can see the cross section of that. This is how the cells look like. Okay, so we are commercializing a 100 megawatt plant in Saxony, Germany. We're on the border of Czech Republic and Poland. And essentially, we've got a joint venture where we own 75% of the technology. Fraunhofer owns 25% free carried for the technology. And you can see this is the proposed plant. You've got a lot of solar panels. We're using renewable energy. Okay, so what does the plant look like on the inside? That's what it looked like. This is a component of it. We have to produce this cell from scratch, making the ceramics, welding it, putting it all together at 1 every 45 seconds. So we are using automotive technology, robotics, all German technology. So very important. So what's the cost of the battery compared to a lithium-ion battery? The Fraunhofer people say it's about 40% cheaper. Well, if you think about it, you don't have any lithium, no copper, no cobalt, no manganese. It's got to be cheaper than an LFP battery. So that's why we got into it. This will blow the lithium-ion battery out of the water in the grid storage sector. Our first product is a 60 kilowatt battery, 100 amps, 600 volts, okay? And if you pull the side of it, what do they look like? There are 240 of these cells in 5 shelves, okay? Each shelves is about 48 cells. What do you notice about it? There are no moving parts, there are no cooling fans. These batteries can be plopped into the middle of the desert or in the snow, okay? This is how we're going to manage the grid storage. We put 18 of this in sea containers, and this is our 1 megawatt grid pack. Very easy to transport. You install it by just dropping it on the deck and plug and play. Immediately, you got 1 megawatt connected to the grid. The other thing that's interesting with this specs, if you're interested in the specs, down below, you also got a power mode. This means that you can actually pump a lot of energy, a quarter of the battery energy in 15 minutes. This is very important for grid storage. So the market is very big. The market is, so for example, the batteries that were installed in South Australia, it's generating that much cash because what they do is they arbitrage it. When power is cheap, they charge the batteries and then discharge the power when the East Coast wants it. This is a prototype that we are producing. We've got 2 prototypes being in production. We are going to finish a DFS by the end of this year. We are in full application for grants. There's a lot of money swirling around in Europe for these kind of projects. And we're also talking to very serious offtake partners. So we want, when we finish the DFS, to have sold all our batteries for this first plant for 5 years. And then the vision for us is to then move to a 4 to 5 gigawatt plant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Iggy. And just watch him too, because I think it's been about 10 years since he's actually been actively involved in the lithium game, who's one of the forerunners there. There's a little rumour going along that he may be involved in another lithium project, a lithium galaxy. Is that correct? Raise your hand.
That's a lithium universe now.
A universe.
We've got a legal challenge.
Okay. All right. We've got Resources Industry Royalty joining us on stage at the Gold Coast now. AMEC Prospector Award winner, geologist, geochemist and manager, Allan Kelly. It'll take you a long time to walk up there with all those titles on your shoulder. Watch this man as he comes up. He's also founding MD of Dore Minerals, discoverer of the high-grade Wilbur Lode gold deposit within the Andy Well project. He's got a lot of credentials behind him. He's here today in his role as the Executive Chairman of Miramar Resources with multi-element projects throughout Western Australia. They're looking for world-class IOCG and nickel in the Gascoyne. Please make him welcome, everyone.
Great. Thanks very much for the introduction, Chrissy. Great to be here again on the Gold Coast, and thanks for Iggy for giving me another use for my nickel if I find it. So we're an exploration company. We're aiming to create value through discovering world-class mineral deposits. We've got a number of opportunities that we're working on throughout WA, and I've just given you some examples of the sort of style of deposit that we're exploring for. So, you know, if we could find just one of those, it'd be fantastic for the company. I'm going to spend most of today talking about the stuff in the Capricorn Origin, our two projects up there, Whale Shark and Bangamore. And if I've got time, I'll probably just talk briefly about the Eastern Goldfields. You know, everyone talks about leverage and enterprise value. Our company, you know, is very cheap at the moment, with about $4 million market cap. We just raised some money over the last couple of days, so we're well funded now to get out and drill holes and hopefully make one of these discoveries. Why the Capricorn Origin? The Capricorn Origin is one of these Proterozoic mobile belts that sit around the edge of the Archean, and these things worldwide host major mineral deposits. The Capricorn Origin in WA is pretty underexplored, but it's starting to get a lot of interest, and it's highly prospective for multiple deposit types and commodities. You know, you can see our Whale Shark and Bangamore projects there, but in the background, you've got things like the lithium discoveries at Unithara, Yangibana's Hastings Yangibana project and Dreadnought. You've got the Abra deposit, and then gold deposits like Paulson's and Mount Olympus as well. So pretty underexplored, but we've got a pretty good land position there for a couple of deposit types that really haven't been looked at compared to the other styles. So this is our Whale Shark project. It's about 40 kilometres east of Onslow, but only about 10 kilometres from the coast. We're looking for an iron oxide copper gold deposit. So this is something like a prominent hill or a Carapatina, or for really, really lucky, an Olympic dam. We've got a Proterozoic granite and a banded iron formation sitting under a Cretaceous basin. And over the last couple of years, we've pulled together a really nice target. We did some mobile metal ion sampling and got an anomaly from surface sampling. We did some infill gravity, and that gave us a nice gravity anomaly in the neck of this granite here. And then because the cover depth here is pretty shallow, especially compared to places like South Australia, where you have to drill through 800 metres of cover to find an iron oxide copper gold deposit, we're able to get out here with an air core rig and just do shallow air core drilling and get down to the basement. And mostly the basement depth is less than about 100 metres. So this is an example of one of those air core holes we did last year. Each of these piles is a metre, so and each line is 20 metres, so that's 20, 40, 60, 80, and the basement is about sort of 80 metres in this case. We've got about sort of 20 metres of tertiary Cretaceous marine black mud, and then we're into the basement. So we've got all the key ingredients for a big IOCG deposit here. We've got Proterozoic granite with iron-rich rocks nearby. We've got overlapping gravity and magnetic anomalism, which is a key signature of these sort of deposits. We've got really, really anomalous interface geochemistry. So we've got copper up to 400 ppm in granite. We've got cobalt up to 800 ppm in granite. And we've even got 0.16 gram per tonne gold in granite as well. So that's telling us that we're close by to something. So what's next? In February, we were successful in getting some funding from the West Australian government through their EIS program that basically pays 50% of our drilling costs. We've just done a heritage survey with the traditional owners here, and we're just about to start diamond drilling this for the first time. So this is the target that we'll be testing in the next few weeks. In plan view, you can see the magnetic image in the background with the gravity, we call it the peanut, the gravity there that's been offset by a fault. And then you can see the MMI soil anomaly and also the highest two results from the air core there. And in cross-section, a sort of north-south cross-section, there's our gravity anomalies. So you can see the tertiary material, the Cretaceous, our little shallow air core holes, and our two diamond holes that we're going to drill. Because of the funding that we got over the last couple of days, we're probably going to put a hole across this structure as well, through here somewhere too. And this is a nice big target. If you dropped Ernest Henry over the top of that, it would look pretty similar. Our other main project in the Gascoyne is we call it the Bangamore. It's in the Edmund and Collier basins, which again part of this Capricorn origin. It's got potential for nickel. It's not sort of Kambalda style nickel. It's more like Nova or the West Musgraves or the Savannah deposit, or international examples of things like Voisey Bay and Norilsk. The key criteria that we have here is sitting on this craton margin between the Pilbara and the Yilgarn. There's these major crustal scale structures which are like the plumbing system for the mineralisation. And then there's all these later cross-cutting faults, which give you a lot of complexity here. There's extensive volumes of dolerites, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. And then there's some really good regional signatures. There was the GSWA did some geochem through here back about 15 years ago and got some really good nickel copper PGE anomalies. And then they flew an EM survey, a regional EM survey, and there's a lot of EM conductors as well. We've got a good land position here. Just for reference, Hastings are sitting here, Dreadnought are sort of through here. Mount Augustus, the biggest rock in the world, is just in here. And the main project that we've been focusing on at the moment is Mount Vernon. And I'm actually going to head up there next week to bang some rocks. Why do we like it? This is just a couple of background slides. This is a thing called the Warrakurna Large Igneous Province. It's Proterozoic. It stretches way over from the Northern Territory over to WA. This is the West Musgraves, where the Nebo and Babel discoveries were made. And the Bangamore dolerites here are the same age as those rocks there. This is a really important map. This is an atlas that was put out by Geoscience Australia in 2016 on nickel potential across the whole of Australia. And you can see Nova here, Nebo and Babel there, Savannah up here. And this is the map that Chalice used to make the Gilmar discovery back in 2018, whatever it was. And it highlights this Bangamore Ashburton area as well. So I've been looking at this area for a while and decided that it was time to probably get out and have a look on the ground and see what was going on. And this is really our model. You've got a basin with lots of sediments. The dolerites intrude into the basin, and where you've got these orange units with a bit of sulfur in them, the dolerite can then create nickel sulfides. So that's what we're looking for. Focusing on Mount Vernon, that was the tenement we got granted first. You've got these Kolkathara dolerite sills, which are the same age as the Musgraves. There's about 30 kilometres of contact where these sills intrude into the sediments, a number of cross-cutting faults. And last year we flew an EM survey over the project, 40-metre line spacing. And you can see we've got a number of very large EM anomalies and quite a few of them sitting along this sort of northern contact of this one dolerite, which is pretty interesting. If we just focus in on this area here, on the next slide here, this shows the dolerite and it's dipping to the south. So this sort of red line here is the basal contact of that dolerite where it outcrops. Rio Tinto were here in the 1990s looking for copper, lead and zinc and did some soil sampling and rock chip sampling, but they got some very anomalous soils on this contact. But then when they did rock chipping, they got things like 2000 nickel, 1100 nickel, 1200 nickel and copper. Bear in mind, this is a dolerite. This is not an ultramafic. So the background nickel content here is like 50 ppm. So these numbers are like 20 times the background. And there's PGEs with these as well. These lines just shown here, they're two of the EM lines. That's 400 metre line spacing. And this anomaly here is about 1 kilometre long, and it's just inboard of that basal contact. The only drilling here was done in 1997 for copper, lead, zinc. There's some elevated nickel, copper and PGEs at the base of the sill in this hole, and this is the closest hole over here. So this anomaly here has never been sampled, even though there's, you know, good nickel, copper here and nickel, copper here, and it's never been drilled. So the next round of EIS funding is in August, so I'm going to put in a application for some RC drilling there. But either way, now with that funding that we've just done, we'll be getting out here and doing some RC drilling on this as well. To give you an idea what this looks like in cross section, this is that Rio Tinto hole, and it hits a dolerite, then sediments, then some more sediments, and another dolerite, and then sediments. And there's elevated nickel and copper PGEs at the base of the sill here. There's a big soil anomaly that sort of trails off that outcrop, and there's some sort of interesting numbers in rock chips here. The new EM data that we did, this is that section 1710. Each of these lines is a channel. We talk about early time and late time channels. And you can see there's a really nice bump here in the late time channels, which is basically, this is about 1 kilometre away from this one, but it's in that same position where the dolerite sill would be intruding into the sediments. So we're really excited about that. Can't wait to get out on the ground and see what we can see on the ground and then get a drill rig out there. And we're looking for something very big here, looking for like a Nova or a Nebo Babel sort of style target. I said I'd briefly talk about our Eastern Goldfield stuff. You know, we listed with these projects. We spent you know, a fair bit of the last 2 years working out here. Safe to say at times we think we're swimming against the tide, the lithium and rare earth tide, but we've got a really good land position here close to Kalgoorlie. Our flagship project is our Iggy project. It sits in between the Super Pit and Mount Charlotte, and the Paddington deposit is right on the highway, about 15 kilometres out of Kalgoorlie. And so far we've defined about 100,000 ounces of shallow gold in air core drilling. We want to do some more work there, but at the moment our focus is on the projects to the north. We've got another project a bit further out on the Salt Lake here at Glandor. We did some diamond drilling there, and we've got a number of high-grade hits there. But again, I think, you know, we'll go back to those projects after we've sort of tested the bigger things up north. Corporate snapshot, this is going to change a little bit as a result of the raising we just announced this morning. Basically, we've got about 150 million shares on issue at a share price of about 4 cents for about $6 million market cap, which is pretty cheap with 2 million in the bank, especially when you look at those opportunities that we've got, especially the real big company maker ones up in the Gascoyne. I'm a large shareholder. I've entered a lot of the projects in, and I've followed my money every time we've done a raising, so I've definitely got a lot of skin in the game. And I'll just finish by sort of summarising what we've got. We've got a large ISC, you know, target at Whale Shark that we'll be drilling in the next few weeks. We've got a number of large nickel copper PGE targets in the Bangor, and you know, we think that will be a new, potentially new sort of discovery type if we can be successful up there. We've got a strategic Eastern Goldfields project portfolio that's getting no love at the moment, so we're just sort of sitting on that for the time being. One thing about our company is we get out in the ground and we spend money on the ground. I think in the 2 years since we've listed, we've spent 75% of our cash on physical exploration, drilling, sampling, geophysical surveys on the ground. We don't have lots of overheads. We've got a very tight share register and a very low EV. Obviously, that's a quick run through the projects. Our booth, I think, is number 13. I look forward to talking to you about our projects. Thanks very much.
Thank you, King Kelly. There's a lot of upside there, isn't there? Be interesting to see how that one goes. I'm sitting down, there was so much information to take in. I could stand up and I can tell you that I've just discovered that here in Queensland, when you do the winter solstice, you weren't here earlier on today, we were talking about one of our presenters had come up from Tasmania, and there is the winter solstice nudie swim tomorrow in the Derwent River. There's 1,700 people going nude except for a red bathing cap in really cold temperatures. But here in Queensland, you're a little bit more refined. So you do a fully clothed winter solstice swim, and you're having that, if anyone feels inclined, at Alexandra Headland Bay on Saturday. So if you want to go and do that, you're more inclined. I won't be joining you, but that's okay. Now, this fella here, we may be joining him with his investment potential. This is seasoned mining veteran Robert Kirtlan. He heads up Renegade Exploration, which is an Aussie-based minerals exploration and development company with advanced copper and gold projects in Queensland's Cloncurry mining district. So the company's primary focus is their Mongoose project, which has significant copper gold intercepts along from True North's Copper's neighbouring Great Australian mine and also the Taipan deposit. So are we going to be interested in this? Speak to us, Rob, and convince us. Would you please make him welcome?
Thanks, Chrissy. Do I push the green button to move the thing? Okay, thank you. Yes, it's an interesting story, our relationship with True North, and you'll see that they are literally our neighbours. So I'll start with the corporate snapshot and where we're at, around the 12 mil market cap. Like a lot of our peer group in our copper space in the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks, we've had a bit of a knock. I'm not quite sure why. Copper's still $8,500 US and the Aussie dollar 67. So tons of money to be made here. And of course, the leverage to the EV revolution, as we call it. Cash-wise, we've got a reasonable amount of cash in the bank. We've got a liquid treasury stock portfolio and also a cash payment coming from a rationalisation of one of our long-term assets, which was in the Yukon in Canada. So why Mount Isa? I guess it comes back to our strategy. If anybody knows what I do, I'm always chasing projects which are in areas where there's been a ton of work done by others, generally majors. So we've gone up here on the basis of data. We don't have to spend a lot of the formative money trying to find projects, and we're not trying to find massive ones. That's what they were doing. They were in these areas that we're working. These guys have been trying to find the next Ernest Henry. That's not our aim. Our aim is to find 2, 5, 10 million tonne deposits and monetize them as quick as we can so that we can all make money and move on to the next project. We acquired an interest in this thing here called the Carpentaria joint venture, which is with Glencore, which is, formerly Xstrata, formerly MIM. It's been around for 20 odd years. We bought it for 350 grand. Basically, the joint venture partner in that was Sovereign Metals, and Sovereign listed on the back of this in 07, stopped funding in 09, so their interest went from 49 to 23% when we acquired it. We've been a contributing partner with Glencore. They've been managing the project. And I spent 1.5 years trying to change the terms of what we call the earn back joint venture. In other words, we can earn back into some of these permits, which they don't want anymore. And quite frankly, they don't want any of them anymore. So eventually we gave up. We triggered it because we kind of thought this thing's just going to die on the vine, and there's some excellent prospects projects within the JV. And the first one we did was the Cloncurry project, EPM 8588 as it's designated. And you can see it up here. It's right on the edge of the Cloncurry township. We can literally walk to work to the Mongoose prospect. And the other one that we're just working up at the moment in the pipeline is Mount Glorious, which is 7 k's east of town, just off the Barclay Highway. So again, we can almost walk there if we're fit enough, and we're not constrained by any infrastructure, rail, water, power, workers, great town, great support, fabulous local Aboriginal community who are right behind what we're trying to do there. So Mongoose was our first prospect. We took it over in towards the end of January. We drilled it in March, April. That was our first program. We had some stunning hits. And we also, then we went back in May. We're still waiting for those assays with the second program. The main thrust of that project was to prove up an oxide resource. And if I go down here, here's where you can see it. So next door is the Taipan deposit. That's owned by True North. They listed on Monday. Taipan runs into Mongoose. So you can see that we're there, those MGX numbers. So fundamentally, we are in discussion with them about a joint mining proposal. As you can tell from me, I'm into monetization. So those discussions are rolling along to a point, I think, where eventually this does get mined or at least gets monetized for us and our partners' benefit. There's some of the historical results from Glencore. They drilled this in 2013. They basically haven't done anything since then. They kind of went, it's not, they drilled some deep holes. There's no Ernest Henry there. So they move on. Whereas we look at it and we go, okay, let's see what's really there and perhaps we can make some money. So nice numbers at surface and some interesting numbers at depth. When we drilled, we got plenty of nice oxide surface numbers. So very good for us to do infill work for our modelling to prove up the resource so that when we go into our discussions with True North, we've got a real idea of how much copper we've got. But what we did hit was these sulfides at, around true depth, 50 metres down to 80 metres, but some stunning hits there, 27 metres at 2.2, and we got one intersection of a metre at 25.6%. I'd encourage you to come to the booth. We've got the chips there. If there's any shareholders in the room, make yourselves known. We've got some gifts for you, which have come from these hits. So please do that. Second program, we went back in to try and expand on what we were seeing there. We picked it up again. We did announce about, after that drilling program finished probably 6 weeks ago, we announced some more visuals because they were material. Currently, the work that's going on there is we wait the assays, but we are modelling up that resource, that oxide, that surface resource. We've got a structural geo in to help us with our next program there to continue testing the deeper sulfide target. It's not straightforward, but we think we'll crack the code. The grade's too high to not think we haven't got anything. There's some nice pictures. So hole 21 was the big one. That 90 to 91 is the 25% copper, but all those other holes have got really nice grades in there, anywhere from 2 through to 10 or 15%. So there's a quick summary of what I've just been talking about. We've drilled 2,000, we've drilled another 1,500. We've got these really nice hits. It's pretty exciting for a small company when you get these hits, and we'll be continuing to work up that project. Nice picture, that's our second program. Hole 21's just off in the distance, and I think we picked up the zone in that particular hole there again. So whilst we are waiting for the assays and doing our modelling, and we've got our resource stats guys going on Mongoose, we then had a chance to have a look around the property. We've got about 10 prospects, all discovered by other people for us to follow up, some with holes in, some with no holes in. And Mount Glorious, I have to admit, was a surprise to us. We went over to this area, which is the western part of the permit, and we thought that we were going over there to look at something called Magpie, which has got holes in it, looks pretty encouraging. Mount Glorious was there, and we kind of stumbled into 3 pits. The outcropping copper and some gold is quite stunning. Those samples, numbers that we're quoting there, which we released on Monday, are mostly from in pit. So we've got 3 pits there, south, main and north. And in that main pit, we can see the blue dots. Most of the blue dots, we sampled the face, and pretty much the whole face is mineralised the whole way around. It's about a 20 metre deep true depth hole, probably 40, 50 metres diameter. And we've become just a little more than excited about that project. So we are currently working on soil programs as we speak. We've mapped it. We're doing EM next week. We've also got our structural guy to go up and have a look for us as well, because we've got him working at Mongoose. So we're sending him over here to have a look at this too, because we're not trying to get our head around it. We're trying to make sure that whatever we're doing and how we drill it is appropriate and to plan, and gives us a good chance of success. The interesting thing about this area is there's some parallels up there, but I won't go into it totally, but we've definitely got some sort of banded iron formation with hematite ore. The area has had it. There has been some mining here with iron ore and to the north. I've got an old iron ore background. I sort of saw it and I was quite shocked. I expected it to be magnetite. I don't believe it's magnetite. I think it's hematite. And certainly our testing so far tells us it's high grade. If we can come up with any tons on that, that's half a chance. So I'm not here really to talk about iron ore, but I need to touch on it because we all know the Queensland government wants iron ore mines. They always have. So the thing about it is we're 7 k's from the railhead. So we can get this ore to the railhead, into a wagon, off to the port. So the initial first pass I've done on that is it's doable. It's been done before. And all we have to do is at some point we'll go in and drill it. Not a priority at the moment, but certainly of interest to us. Again, an asset that we may be able to monetize reasonably quickly. So the focus is totally on Mount Glorious, on that main pit. It's pretty much a walk-up target, but we've done the work and we will be drilling that in August. And we regard that as a high impact target. We think we should get pretty good results out of it. We'd be disappointed if we didn't. You can see in this main pit here, you can see the mineralized zone straight ahead, but there's pretty much only 20–25% of that pit that's not mineralized. And off to the left in that sort of yellowy iron oxide stuff, it runs at 2 to 5% type numbers in copper. So it doesn't look that flash, but it's actually very nice stuff. Elsewhere within the Carpentaria joint venture, we're still contributing and we're just managing that particular permit and earning our way back in. Our partner Glencore has drilled some holes at Edgarta. I'd say most in the room are probably familiar with Carnaby. So Carnaby, basically Mount Hope is to the north. It's on a similar structure. You can pick that up. Glencore, I think, as part of their last gasp, will drill 2 holes to meet their commitments to the mines department. They've drilled them. We wait the assays. We haven't asked what they are. We fully expect them to not do any more on that ground. And we've been down and had a really quick look around. So we'll possibly bring that into the earn back terms as well. So we think we may be able to do a little bit more with it than what they are, because again, they're looking for 100 million tonnes, 200 million tonnes at whatever. They're looking at the really big type plays. We have another project called North Isa. We've earned our 75% interest in that. It's literally just to the north. We can see the George Fisher mine when we're on the top of Lady Agnes. We did some drilling there last year. We were chasing a breccia system. Mount Isa had been in there. They drilled like 1,200 metre and 1,300 metre holes. They picked up a really big system. We went in and we were trying to see if we could pick it up coming to surface. And if it was coming to surface, as is our mantra, we thought if we can get it out of the ground, shallow pit, then we can get it on a truck and get it down to Isa and make money. So that was the plan. We're not quite there. We think we need to do another 3 holes in it because we did some EM on it. Another 3 holes, and we either kill it and move on to the next target, which is Tulloch. We'll probably work on that later in the quarter, and in the third quarter. All the geologists get very excited by this one, by the way, but I'm much more excited about Mount Glorious for the moment. So that's our motto: follow the copper. We go where the copper is. We're not trying to make it up. We try and get results and data from other companies who are looking for something else, not quite what we're looking for. And as you can see, the drilling at Mongoose is well and truly underway. That project is now in development mode. We've got this opportunity for early mining. The Mount Glorious target that we believe is very high impact, and we will be drilling that sometime in August. And Edgarta's finished. When it comes to funding, we trade assets. We will sell projects. If we think we've got something better to drill, we'll trade it out. We won't go to market. We haven't been to market for 3 years. Everyone asks us, where's your money coming from? And I said, we will find the money. It's okay. It's something I've been doing for a very long time. Strong news flow. I think I've talked enough about that. There's plenty coming in the next 3 to 4 months. The board, myself, have been around for probably too long. I sort of got pulled out of retirement. Mark Wallace is sort of broker type, and Mark Connolly, probably well known to a few of you in the room, who's an old mate of mine, and he's going to help us out with development. Thank you very much. Come and see us.
Good on you, Rob. Well done. I noticed you've divested not only with the shirt, but also with the ties. Well, you've got rid of the whole, you've gone completely Queensland relaxed, haven't you?
I've moved from WA. I moved here last February,
Oh, did
as
you
in
really?
last year when McGowan shut the border.
Yeah.
And we had these projects and it became our focus because we dealt our other two. So I moved here and I'm very happy because it's like I've come home. I lived here in the mid-80s.
Yeah.
And of course now I'm a full-on Maroon.
Yeah.
So we'll go out and we'll give the...
You're trying to suck up to them,
We'll
Rob,
give
aren't
them,
you?
we'll give them a hiding tonight.
Get off the stage, Robert. Off you go. G'day. Andrew's waiting his turn. We're going to head west for our next investment opportunity, staying on theme for this session. Rare earths. Caprice Resources is a high-quality WA-focused explorer with their eye on an interesting strike at its Muckamboodin rare earth project. Also, they've got base metals in Northampton. They've got gold in the Murchison. This is our guide. Also not wearing a tie today. From Caprice, he's an MD. He's a former geo. He's also a former financier. You've had about 13 years in that game too, didn't you, Andrew? Andrew Muir, would you please put your hands together, everyone?
Thanks very much, Chrissy, and thanks very much for the RIU crew for putting on another fantastic conference, and to those that are turning up physically and also for those watching online. So I'm here to tell the Caprice story. So why invest in Caprice? We believe we've got fantastic quality projects. We've got the Muckamboodin rare earth project, Northampton polymetallic project, big land holding, and strategically located Murchison gold project. Outstanding risk reward play. We're highly leveraged to exploration success with a market cap of about 5 mil, and management very strongly aligned to our success with a very experienced team. Just a quick corporate snapshot. Main takeaways, share price sitting at the moment of about 4.7 cents. Still a pretty tight capital structure, about 117 million shares on issue, with a market cap, as I said, about 5 to 5.5 million. Experienced board, good mix of legal, technical, financial, and boots on ground experience, and with a pretty large stake in the game. So in terms of our projects, what we've got, as I said before, Muckamboodin rare earth project. This is a current main focus. Strategic minerals exposure. We've got a pretty good land holding, 380 square Ks. Even though it's a relatively new field, for want of a better word, rare earths have actually been recognised in this area for a while. We're initially chasing pegmatite hosted rare earths. We've got multiple pegmatites on our ground. First program we've done, we've already delineated a +1 kilometre soil anomaly, but also in the area there's been a couple of new different styles of rare earth mineralisation identified, and I'll go through those in due course. At Northampton, a polymetallic project, large ground holding, about 1,200 square Ks. It's unusual to pick up such a large ground holding in an area that's had over 100 years of high-grade base metals mining, yet it's had minimal exploration in the past 50 years. And we did some drilling there earlier on this year and had some fantastic results. And last but definitely not least is our Murchison gold projects. Fantastic location, minimal exploration, close to 2 processing plants, so very strategic. Zooming in on Muckamboodin, as I said, it's a well-known pegmatite field. There's been no rare earth exploration in recent history. And one of the unique aspects, I suppose, is there's a couple of historical quarries in the area that give us a good insight into the geology. So most people are obviously aware of the significance of rare earths, very strategic, obviously used in batteries, magnets, wind farms, et cetera. One of the thematics that is only going to increase in the coming future is the security of supply thematic, with Western governments wanting to make sure that supply chains are secure. So zooming in on Muckamboodin itself, multiple pegmatites, as I said, we've identified at least 7 or 8 of these things. We acquired the project in about December last year. It's only about 3 hours drive north of Perth, or northeast of Perth. Fantastic location. It's very easy to get to. It's cross-cut by lots of roads. It's very easy to move around, and there's a lot of farming tracks. And as I highlighted, there's a lot of activity going on in this area. As you can see from that slide there, you've got IGO bracketing us on both sides, Rios to the north, Cygnus have put out some good drill results from rare earths in clays to the south, and we've also had Codrus do the same up to the northeast. And there's a few other unlisted players that are being pretty active in this region. So rare earths were actually identified in this part of the world and in the quarries in the probably late 80s, if not early 90s. So they've been known about for a while, but obviously given the topicalness, I suppose, of rare earths, people have only really started to move into this area recently. So our number one prospect is what we've called Gattelin. Gattelin is actually named after Johannes Gattelin, who's the first scientist to identify rare earths in the 1700s. And first pass sampling over that, we've identified a very large anomaly. We've got multiple other areas that we're doing early stage reconnaissance sampling on. And following that up, we'll be looking to drill in the September quarter. So just zooming in on Gattelin, just a couple of pretty diagrams here. So as I said, this is really the first pegmatite that we've really got our teeth into. It's over 1 kilometre long, total rare earth oxide anomaly. It's still open to the south. It's still open laterally. And we've had some pretty good REO grades in our soil sampling, over 3,700 ppm. So obvious workflow, as you can see, there's assays pending to the southeast, also to the south. It's got quite a large granitic outcrop in the middle of it, which initially when I walked over, I thought, well, this is obviously going to be dead because it's granite, whereas we're looking for pegmatites. However, that's I've done an about face on that, given the results we've got. Also referencing Codrus, who, as I said, they identified some rare earths in clays, but sitting underneath that, they drilled through sort of 120 to 140 metres of rare earth enriched granite. So we initially went in there looking for pegmatitic rare earths. There's obviously now rare earths in clay in the area. And I guess there's a third potential opportunity is elevated rare earths in granite. So this area just gets more and more exciting the more work that we do and our peers do as well. So obviously we're awaiting assays at the south of that. And once we sort of get a handle on those, we'll look to plan some drill targets. So we're obviously running around sampling quite a few other different areas. As I said, we've got multiple different pegmatites. You can see there my geo, Dave, is a big rugby lad, but that's union, not league, sorry. He's out in the field at the moment sampling. He's actually sitting in Muckenbuden, out running around, taking lots of samples. He's a bit sad today because he's an Englishman. So, of course, given the cricket overnight. But otherwise, fantastic geo in the field. He's out there probably every second week. So that's been really good for us in terms of ramping up our news flow and getting stuff done on the ground. So Gattelin's obviously the number one focus, but we've also sampled quite a few other pegmatites, and we've done some more reconnaissance lines over those, and we'll have those results coming in the following weeks, and that'll sort of guide where our next sort of steps are. At Northampton, historical high-grade base metals production. As I said, it's rare you can get an opportunity with such a large land position next to a historical high-grade mining area. So, as I said, almost 1,200 square Ks. Over 100 of these mines were operated on over about 150 odd years of production, with quite a lot of sizable quantities of lead, copper, zinc, and silver came out. 75% of the mines were focused on lead. The other 25% were copper. However, in a lot of the mines, when they got to the copper-rich zones, they actually stopped mining. So there's obviously a lot of metal in this part of the world. Our initial focus is on Lady Sampson, which is down to the south. We did 2 drill programs at Lady Sampson. Apologies if you can't read those from the back. But we got some fantastic polymetallic grades in it. 22 holes for just under 2,000 metres. As you can see, the drill rig there. So we are drilling in farmers' fields, but drilling, we've used Strike in their EnviroPod, which has been fantastic. It's less almost zero footprint on the ground. Once you remove the bags and the collar, you wouldn't even know that we're there. So we got some outstanding grades. As you can see in this section here, the headline numbers, 14 metres at almost 8% lead, 1.1% zinc and 3 grams silver. That's roughly the equivalent of about 3.5 grams gold. So that was the very first hole. So to get those numbers in the first drill program was just outstanding. So we'll be going back and doing more work on that. That's now under crop. So we can't go back and drill it straight away. However, one of the things that we did whilst we're there, we took some soil samples because there's not a lot of cover there. So the soils actually work really, really well. So as you can see there from the diagrams, lead, copper and zinc outline the anomaly really, really well. The interesting thing is in the copper anomaly, you can see that there's some quite high grades towards the north. We didn't actually test that with the drilling, so that's another area that we're going to follow up. And we'll also use soil sampling in other areas within Northampton because it looks like it's a fantastic tool. And last but not least, our Murchison Gold project. As I said, strategic location, outstanding neighbourhood. Musgrave, Evolution, Ramelius, West Gold, and Austin Metals, all doing work in this part of the world. Highly prospective geology. So there you've got a map of the lay of the land. The flagship project is our Allan Gold project, which you can see in the middle. That's wrapped around by Musgrave and the Musgrave Evolution JV. Musgrave's just been bid for by West Gold. So there's obvious M&A potential in this part of the world, given that there's 2 processing plants within about 50 k's of our ground. Some major structures, over 15 million ounces found in this part of the world. So an outstanding strategic location. Geology is really good. We've done a fair bit of work on that over the past sort of 2 years and came up with some fantastic results on the island itself within the banded irons. And we also stepped off the lake as well to test an area to the south of the Allan Gold project. And this is the first time that it had ever been drilled. And we discovered what we're calling a Solace prospect. So first pass air core delineated a +1 kilometre anomaly. We followed that up with RC drilling. And as you can see there, we got some pretty good numbers. So that was the first time that this area had ever been drilled. So we're pretty excited about what this could all mean. However, you know, reiterating the thematic that we're seeing across the board, rare earths is still very much the focus. We will return to this in due course to progress this, but the focus really is on the rare earths. So fantastic opportunity investing in Caprice. We've got high quality projects, as I've just gone through, muck and Boodin, rare earth pegmatite potential, plus rare earth in clays, plus potentially rare earth in granite. We're actively exploring, as you saw from the photos of Dave in the field. He's out there now taking lots of samples, and we'll have pretty strong news flow from that. Northampton polymetallic, large scale deposit potential, a lot of new styles of mineralisation that we need to look at, and we'll be using soils to progress that. And then Murchison, as I said, strategic location, fantastic neighbourhood, highly prospective, and with active exploration and corporate activity going on in the region. So the main thing is, as I reiterated before, outstanding risk reward with a market cap of about 5 mil, highly leveraged to exploration success. So watch this space for news flow. Thanks very much.
Well done, Andrew. Lots to take in with that particular project. We have got one talk between us and lunch. Actually, Stu and the team are really looking after us today. Strike Energy is our last presentation this afternoon, and we'd like to invite you all back for drinks as well. So if you'd like to join us in the area outside, we'll be having some drinks out there as well, maybe even a little bit of food, who knows, but lunch is definitely good. Right, this fellow here, Brian Thomas, Technical Director of Lanthanein Resources, geologist, mineral economist. He's got more than 30 years work in exploration and mining management experience, combined with 15 years of working in capital markets. So he may just know what he's talking about here. I reckon he's had a fair idea. So let's see if we want to go on the journey. Would you please welcome Brian to tell the Lanthanein story to us?
Thank you, Chrissy, and thank you to Stewie and Jax for putting on another great conference. The inevitable disclaimer, it's in the presentation which is available at the booth should you wish to read it. Straight into the company. First of all, it's run by geologists. There's 4 of us on that slide there, 3 on the board, and a consultant who actually put most of the package together and backed it in and stayed with the company to work on the project. So we run a very lean operation, no office. We all work from home, and all the money we raise goes into the ground. Got a reasonably open structure. We're very liquid. So for investors that want to look at us, we do trade rather a lot. So it's an easy out. So EV of around 13 odd million. So we've raised money at the beginning of this year, and we're putting it all in the ground. Projects, we're into rare earths. Lanthanein Resources, it's all about the rare earths, the neodymium and the praseodymium. Fundamentally, the key project really is our Gascoyne project in near Hastings in the Gascoyne, and also a ionic clay rare earth hosted project in South Australia, right next to Australian Rare Earths. We also have another project near Meekatharra called Mount Clare, and a kaolin project in the Yilgarn, which interestingly enough also has some rare earths in it. First Nations, we have a good working relationship with all our First Nations groups, and particularly the ones in the Gascoyne. The chap in that photo, Peter Salmon, his family speaks for the land that we're exploring on. If you don't have a working relationship with your First Nations group, you don't have a project, you don't have a social license to operate. Peter and his family are very, very supportive of exploration in the area. We work very, very closely with him, as does Dean at Dreadnought. He speaks for their land as well. So we have a great working relationship with Peter Salmon's family in the Thinmar group. ESG, we're very, very conscious of our need for ESG in this modern world. And we have a great track record of our social, the S part of the ESG. We work very, very hard at the environmental side and the governance. That's why we have lawyers and accountants to look after that. And we have a roadmap which we regularly publish, courtesy of a group called Social Suite. So when you see our quarterlies, you see our progression on our ESG roadmap. This slide has been putting it up for a while now, but the global decarbonisation is all locked in, and minerals for an electric future. That's really what it's all about with rare earths. So what are rare earths? They're part of the lanthanide group of metals, which are in the periodic table, named after ancient Greek for lanthanide, hence our name. So the lanthanide group, and the key elements there really are the praseodymium and neodymium. The neodymium iron-boron magnets are the key to this whole thing, with the permanent magnets that go into EVs and into the wind turbines. So there's been a little bit of dip in the market early in the year when Elon Musk came out and said, I'm not going to use rare earths in my magnets in my car. Good luck, Elon. The efficiency of ferrite magnets is not that great. So he'll be back. I think he was trying to talk his talk his market on his inputs. So yeah, the market balance with rare earths is very much out of whack. China has dominated for decades, and Western governments and economies are desperately trying to get their own supply. So there is an imbalance going forward on the neodymium and the praseodymium. Which brings us to our Gascoyne project, picked up by Tom Langley, the chap in the photograph on the first slide. He picked up the ground when it wasn't fashionable for rare earths, but we were next door to Hastings. Now, Hastings have the Yangibana project on which they're building a mine. They've recently decided to build only half their processing plant to start with because of cost blowouts, but they have got a working mine that is in construction. So they've got the pits planned, they've got the camp built, half the plant is under construction, and they'll be producing a rare earth concentrate in the next year or two. We picked up the ground on the back of rock chips that Tom Langley went out and grabbed on the ground, and so we moved on to realising that they were the same rocks that Hastings had. Now, Hastings have got a reserve of 20 million tonnes at about 0.9% total rare earths. So the key thing here is the high percentage of neodymium and praseodymium in that total percentage of rare earths. It's worldwide, generally it's around 15%. In the Gascoyne, it's 30, 40%, in some cases up to 50%. As I said, we picked up the project initially sampling ironstones, and if you look at some of the rock chips we picked up there, most rare earth projects around the world talk about their grades in parts per million. As you can see here, we're talking percentages. Total rare earth rock chip samples between 2 and 8%. I mean, that's just poking out of the ground. So obviously we were really excited about that and planned drilling. That was last year. So we did first pass drilling last year after doing our heritage clearances, obviously. And we've just done recently done another round of drilling where we drilled about nearly 10,000 metres of RC and about 600 metres of diamond into the ground. And we're now anxiously awaiting those results coming. As you can see there, the ironstones really do poke out of the ground. So the first round of drilling was very, very encouraging. We came up with very, very similar numbers to what Hastings have with their pits, which are roughly about 2 kilometres away from where this particular part of the project is what we call lines 12 and 13. We've done some infill drilling there and with this most recent program, which will lead us to be able to put together a resource estimate on that particular part of the project. Just for demonstration, the ironstone dikes that we're drilling, they're just fairly flat dipping and reasonably simple to drill, and hence the geometry is not that difficult to do an estimate for a resource. Coming down to the regional part of the project, we picked up this ground on the basis that it was on the Bald Hill lineament. We had Hastings next door to us. Dean and the Dreadnought people are on the other side of the Lions Fault. So it's a very hot area for rare earths. It's all based around intrusions that have come up along the Bald Hill lineament and shed off the ironstone hosted with the rare earths in them. So during the year, we've done a lot of work with the geophysics, and we've developed a model whereby we think we have some of these carbonatite or ferrocarbonatite intrusions on our Lions EL to the southeast of where Hastings are. In addition to the geophysics, we did a lot of work with some high resolution spectral imagery, and we picked out more and more ironstones on the EL, and so we've targeted a lot of those new ironstones with the most recent drilling program. But more importantly, it's outlined what we think are the potential for the ferrocarbonatites, which are the host to the rare earths in the project area. So taking that same slide, stripping away the layer of the geophysics, you can see the visuals there. You can see that the red lines are all the ironstones that we've picked up from the various the sensing and the ground checking. So we have, I guess, half a dozen potential targets for ferrocarbonatites on that area, and also the ironstone dikes that shed off them. As part of the work on those ferrocarbonatite targets, we've put a couple of EIS holes, which is the Department of Mines Exploration Incentive Scheme holes, into the rims of those what we think are ferrocarbonatites, and our geophysicist director Peter Swerjek has been very excited about the results, and we've got the results coming on those diamond holes in the next month or so. Hopefully it'll prove our theory that we have actually got the source rocks on our EL. We're doing additional clearances with our native title, our elders in the next week or so, to clear up more ground so we can do more work. So just for a demonstration, the intrusions of the ferrocarbonatites are just a big intrusion that comes up through the crust. And you can see there where there's a horizontal line, which is where it's been weathered down to the current surface. And as I said, we've got a drill hole into the edge of those intrusions to find out whether there's rare earths that are still present in the original intrusion. So it's exciting times. And I know Dean's drilled some of his intrusions and had rare earths across the surface expression of the intrusion, plus on the edges. So we just need to know where the highest concentration of rare earths is in those intrusions. Moving on to Miradium, which is in South Australia. This is a ionic clay hosted rare earth project. We're right next door to Australian Rare Earths. They floated on a resource at a project called Coppermurra, 100 million tonne at about 800 parts per million, which is back to where we were saying about rare earths projects being in parts per million, but this is ionic clay hosted, and these are true ionic clays, which means they're very easy to extract the rare earths out of the clays. So as I said, we're right next door to Australian Rare Earths. We're exploring in the same areas that they are targeting, a thing called the Lox and Parilla sands. These are really shallow. We're talking like 20 metres deep, and they're flat lying. So we've done a roadside drilling program. This is all private, lots of private land areas. So the only access we need to get is to the roadside verges. And as you can see there, we've in our first program, we did some air core holes along the roadside verges and came up with every hole was over 1,000 parts per million of neodymium and praseodymium, and in a couple of holes, well over 2,000. So very, very encouraging. All these results are from XRF. We're still waiting on the assay, so those results will flow in the next month or so. Yes, Chrissy. We also have the Coolio-Kaolin project, which is in the Yilgarn, which is a high quality kaolin sitting on top of an old granite in the area. And like Andrew was talking in the goldfields there and the wheat belt, there's a lot of rare earths, and we found rare earths with our kaolin as well. Mount Clare is an area not far from Meekatharra, targeting rare earths there, but we also have some LCT pegmatites, which we need to check out for lithium. We are planning drilling there in the next quarter. So really the opportunity and the investment thesis for Lanthanein, it's rare earths, and we have hard rock rare earths in the Gascoyne, and we're right next door to a plant that's being built. Our near neighbours are also developing very large resources, being Dreadnought. So it's a hot area for rare earths in the Gascoyne. Same rocks, same mineralogy as Hastings, so we know it can be processed. Miradium, the ionic clay hosted rare earths, as I said, once again, right next door to Australian Rare Earths, they are developing their project as well. And we believe we're in the same area. So as I mentioned earlier, we're a very liquid stock. We're not that expensive, and it's a very, very highly leveraged play on the rare earths future. Thank you.
A good note to go out on, food for thought. Now, coming up after the lunch break, we've got about a 45-minute break. We've got a pretty diverse portfolio of investment opportunities for you. We have got coal, and we've got lithium, we've got the new black in forward-facing commodities, we've got vanadium, and we've also got to hear from the youngest company to present here at Gold Coast in 23. In fact, they're so new that the ink basically hasn't even dried on the prospectus that they are lodging today. So it might be an opportunity to get in early. Who knows? We love opportunities, just need to make the most of it. I will call you back at 1:25. Go out and enjoy and talk ad infinitum. Thank you.